All right, let's jump into this deep dive into Skyforce 2014, this mobile arcade shooter. Uh, it's got people talking even years later. We're going to try to figure out what makes this one so special. We've got the game's documentation, some early reviews, and even some of those retrospective articles that look back on it now.
That's fascinating. It's not just a game. We're looking at how mobile gaming evolved.
Hmm.
Skyforce 2014 really hit this sweet spot between that classic arcade feel and, the depth you expect in a more involved gaming experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's not just a shoot 'em up. I'm seeing a lot about this nostalgia, a really intense upgrade system, and how sound design is actually like a big part of how you play the game.
Oh, yeah, it's essential. I mean, at its core,
Yeah.
it's pretty straightforward. Top-down shooter, you're piloting a fighter jet,
Yeah.
taking out enemies, dodging obstacles, collecting power-ups, but then there's all this strategy.
Right, like those 4 objectives per level. I kept reading about that.
Yeah.
70% enemy destruction,
Big deal.
100% enemy destruction, rescuing all civilians, and completing the level untouched. That sounds hard.
Oh, it is. Really clever design choice. Makes you want to replay the levels. To achieve everything, adds so much replayability. Plus, you have those difficulty levels. Normal, hard, and of course, insane mode.
Insane mode. That sounds wild. What about those bonus stages? What makes those so special?
Ah, yes, the bonus stages. Those are like time-based challenges. You're up against a clock,
Yeah.
and you have to complete specific objectives, like destroying a set number of enemies or collecting a certain amount of stars. Real adrenaline rush.
Okay, so we got intense objectives, different difficulty levels, these high-pressure bonus stages, starting to sound less straightforward and more like a strategic masterpiece. Tell me about this upgrade system. That seems to be where things get really interesting.
You're right. The upgrade system is where Skyforce 2014 really shines. As you destroy enemies, you collect stars, classic arcade reward. But these stars are important. You use them to upgrade your ship's components, health, your main weapons, wing cannons, missiles, lots to tweak. And then you have your special abilities, like the Mega Bomb, clears out a huge swath of enemies, and the Star Magnet pulls in all those precious stars from a wider radius.
Wow, so much customization. But I read something about the upgrades working differently depending on what you're playing on.
Yeah, that's one of the more debated aspects of the game. So on consoles, upgrades happen instantly. You get the stars, you buy the upgrade, boom, you're ready to go. But on mobile, it's time-based. You might have to wait a few minutes or even hours for that new wing cannon.
Oh, I can see how that'd be frustrating, especially when you're ready to get back in there. Was that a technical thing or a strategic choice?
That's a good question. It's probably a combo. Technically, mobile devices weren't as powerful as consoles back in 2014, so maybe they needed that time delay to, manage resources.
Right.
But it also forces you to plan your upgrades in advance. No instant gratification. Got to think ahead.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we've got intense gameplay, strategic upgrades. What about the controls? Button mashing frenzy. Or is there some nuance there?
The controls are actually very streamlined. On consoles, you're just using an analog stick to control your ship. And on mobile, you're using touch gestures to move and fire. But here's where it gets interesting. On mobile, you can slow down the game just by lifting your finger off the screen.
Wait, really? That's brilliant, especially for those moments where you need a second to just assess everything.
Exactly. Give you a moment to breathe,
Yeah.
to plan your next move, especially when the screen is filled with bullets and enemies.
Oh, they love that. So we've got intense gameplay, strategic upgrades, surprisingly intuitive controls. What about the story? What kind of a world are we blasting our way through?
You're a fighter pilot, tasked with protecting the world from evil. You'll fly through all kinds of landscapes, war-torn cities, tropical islands, rescuing civilians, taking down enemy bases.
And the visuals, those seem to be a major talking point.
It's the vibrant colors. Everything is so crisp and detailed, they really pushed the boundaries of what was possible on those devices. And they use dynamic weather effects.
Dynamic weather effects, so it's not just a static background.
Not at all. Thunderstorms with lightning strikes you have to dodge. Blizzards that reduce visibility. Even sunny days that cast shadows. It impacts the gameplay.
Wow, that's really impressive. Okay, we can't talk about a game like this without talking about the sound design.
Oh yeah, this is where it gets cool.
Yeah.
You've got this pulse-pounding electronic soundtrack. Keeps you energized,
Yeah.
which is, pretty standard. But then you have full voiceover instructions, like having a co-pilot.
That's a cool detail. I also heard something about the sound effects actually being helpful for gameplay.
Absolutely. One of the things that makes this game stand out, they're designed to give you vital information. For example, you can hear your shields depleting, so you know you need to play more defensively. Or you might hear a missile coming at you, allowing you to react just a bit faster.
So it's not just about creating atmosphere, it's about giving players an advantage. I want to zoom out a little bit. Where does Skyforce 2014 fit into mobile gaming history?
Good question. This game isn't just a standalone title. It's part of a legacy. It's a modern reimagining of the original Skyforce series, which debuted way back in 2004. So in 2014, they were celebrating a decade, and they wanted to make a statement.
So it was a chance to revisit a classic, but also show how far mobile gaming had come. What were the developers aiming for?
They wanted to elevate the user experience. They took advantage of all the advancements in mobile tech to create a game with stunning 3D graphics, a more complex and rewarding gameplay loop, and even social features, like those weekly tournaments.
Fascinating blend of old and new. So how was it received when it launched?
The reaction was overwhelmingly positive. Critics and players were blown away by the visuals, the controls, that addictive gameplay, and how accessible it was.
That's impressive. But we did mention some criticisms, like the grind to unlock features.
Yes, that was a point of contention for some, especially on mobile. But even those criticisms were often overshadowed by the praise.
So overall, it sounds like it was a major success.
It was. This game pushed the boundaries of what people thought was possible. It showed that mobile games could be visually stunning, mechanically deep, and incredibly engaging.
Amazing. It's clear that Skyforce 2014 is more than just a game. It helped shape mobile gaming. But before we wrap up this part of our depth dive, I want to leave you with something to think about. How much mobile gaming has evolved since 2014? What aspects of Skyforce 2014 still hold up today, and what might feel a bit dated? Take a moment to reflect on that. Because when we come back, we're going to delve even deeper into the legacy of this fascinating game. So we were talking about how much mobile gaming has evolved since 2014. What do you think? What parts of this game still hold up, and what might feel a bit outdated?
Mobile games have come a long way, especially in terms of graphics and gameplay complexity. But sometimes the simplest ideas are the best. And Skyforce 2014 nailed that balance between classic arcade fun and modern design. And honestly, the visuals are still impressive. Those vibrant colors, detailed landscapes, dynamic weather effects, they hold up pretty well.
I agree. And it's more than just how good it looks. It's how those visuals work with the game. Remember we talked about the weather effects changing how you play. You're not just flying through a background, you're dodging lightning and blizzards. It's immersive.
Exactly. It feels alive. And don't forget about the sound design. Remember those auditory cues? The way you can hear your shields depleting or a missile coming at you? Gives you a split-second advantage.
It's like a secret weapon. So much thought went into every little detail.
Absolutely. And those 4 objectives per level, so smart. Encourages you to replay, makes it last longer. It wasn't just about finishing. It was about mastering 100% enemy destruction, saving every civilian, not taking any damage.
Adds a challenge. And a feeling of satisfaction. And the upgrade system. A little grindy, but it gave you something to work towards.
Yeah, some people complain about that grind.
Yeah.
But it makes you invest in the game. You put in the time, you earn the stars, you get better. Then you want to keep playing. It works.
It's like leveling up in an RPG or unlocking a weapon. You get that little reward that keeps you coming back. But what about the things that might feel dated? Mobile gaming has come so far.
You're right. The visuals are good. But games now are so much more realistic. Think about the detail, the lighting and shadow effects, the huge environments.
And it's not just graphics. Gameplay is way more complex and nuanced now. Skyforce 2014 has depth. But games now have so many more options.
Yeah, like those mobile MOBAs and strategy games. Players are making big decisions, managing resources, working with teammates.
And of course, online multiplayer. It's huge now. Skyforce had those tournaments, but it wasn't the same.
True. Games are more collaborative now, more competitive, more connected.
So Skyforce 2014, it might not have all the modern stuff, but it was still so important. It took that classic arcade style, made it modern, the visuals were amazing, and it felt so polished.
It reminded people that mobile games could be more. They could be deep and polished and really fun.
It's kind of crazy to think that a game from almost a decade ago could be so important. And the Skyforce franchise is still going. They've made sequels.
They've added features and planes and challenges, but they haven't changed the core gameplay.
So it's more than just nostalgia. It's something special. When we come back, we'll dive into the game's development, the reviews, and its legacy. All right, welcome back to our Skyforce 2014 deep dive. We've covered a lot. Gameplay, visuals, sound design, even how it compares to games today.
Now let's take a look behind the scenes, see how this game was made. Skyforce 2014 wasn't just a new game, it was a total reimagining.
Right, the original came out in 2004, so 2014 was a big anniversary for them. What were the developers going for with this new version?
They had this challenge, capturing what made the original great while also using all the new tech. It was 2014. Smartphones and tablets were way more powerful, and players expected more.
They had to honor the past and move forward.
Exactly. And I think they did a great job. They added those 3D graphics, they revamped the gameplay, and they even added social stuff like the tournaments.
It's a cool blend. Speaking of modern, how did people react when it first came out?
It got tons of positive reviews. People loved it. The visuals, the gameplay, how polished it felt. They said it was really accessible, so anyone could enjoy it.
That's impressive to appeal to that many people. But there were some criticisms, right? Like that grind to unlock features.
Yeah, some people didn't like that, especially on mobile. But most people focused on the good stuff.
It sounds like it was a hit. But beyond that, what's Skyforce 2014's legacy? How did it change mobile gaming?
It showed that mobile games could be more than just something to do when you're bored. They could be deep, they could look amazing, and they can be really engaging.
It raised the bar for everyone.
Yeah, and you can see that in games today. Games with console-quality graphics, complicated stories, online communities that are just as good as PC and console. Skyforce 2014 was part of that.
It's amazing how important a game from so long ago can be. And the Skyforce series is still going. They've released sequels.
Yeah, they've added stuff, new planes, more challenges, but they kept the core gameplay.
So as we wrap up, what are the key takeaways?
I think Skyforce 2014 shows us how to take something classic and make it new. It's a perfect blend of old and new. And it proved that mobile games could be amazing.
Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best. And even today, there's always room for a fun and addictive shooter like this.
It's been fun talking about this game with you.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Skyforce 2014. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.